XRP rallies despite Swift FUD. That's right, folks. Swift felt a little bit left out on the XRP hate, negativity, and FUD campaign, and so they decided to hop on in here. And I just sit back and I laugh because it's another attack against XRP, but despite the attack, XRP's moving back up and it still has a long ways to go. Now, folks, things are looking good here, moving back in the right direction, but you know what our targets are at. You know where our timeline stands. We still have a lot higher targets to take out here before job is completed, right? Job's not finished, not even close, but we look at our checklist, we look at the timeline, we look at our targets. The base case is ridiculously conservative, and even the base case puts us in a position to create generational wealth for our families. And we're talking about XRP and other digital assets covering the greatest transfer of wealth in world history while tuning into the current events, breaking down the rest of the financial markets, but we focused on the biggest and best opportunities. It's definitely in crypto. Now, before we get started here tonight, I do want to say a huge shout out and thank you to Paul Barron for having me on his podcast. It's always nice to flip things around, getting interviewed and breaking down some of our analysis and being able to connect with Paul Barron's community. Really happy to see Paul in the XRP family. I think he's done a good job of covering the crypto space as a whole. And then recently I can see the shift in focusing on XRP and really sharing the truth about XRP. And so I want to thank Paul for having me on his show. It was a real joy and a pleasure. And I hope that you guys have enjoyed the conversation. If you haven't checked it out, maybe tomorrow when you get a chance, you can tune into Paul Barron's podcast with me that just dropped earlier today. Okay? But guys, hey, let's get right on into the news. I want to get to Q&A as well, too. I want to talk targets. I want to talk timeline. I want to talk FUD. I want to dispel the FUD. But I figured let's start out with a little riddle. How's Fred Rispoli doing? Huge shout out to Fred, one of our good lawyer friends in the XRP community. It's always nice to have a few lawyers in your pocket, huh? If there is such a thing as fate, it would require that a soldier in the XRP army win Wednesday's Powerball. From Fred's lips or Twitter fingers to God's ears, let it be true. And he says it because the cash value of the jackpot is $589 million. And I wanted to ask you guys in the chat, do you guys play the lottery or do you just invest in crypto and sometimes make some degen plays like I do? I don't do the lottery. I just roll the dice on some XRP meme coins and maybe an XRP long, leveraged up a little bit, just slightly. Got to be safe out here. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about that. 589 million. I don't know if anybody in the XRP family needs that, though. We got so much wealth coming our way just from XRP and some of our other investments, huh? Wouldn't be giving a lot of that wealth away, too, giving back. I'm very excited for our community. Without further ado, into the episode, guys. ZachRector.com for all of our community resources. The most recent one is the Gemini credit card. Still waiting in the mail. I actually forgot to check the mail here today because I'm really excited to swipe my Gemini credit card for the first time. So get tapped in on that one, and then all the rest of our community resources, the shop, wallets, exchanges, etc. We couldn't do it without your support, so thank you so much. Let's rock and roll. Coinbase Derivatives to launch a Magnificent 7 crypto equity index future on September 22nd, offering the first combined exposure to traditional equities and cryptocurrency ETFs. So you got the Mag 7, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Nvidia, Meta, Tesla, Coinbase going to be in there, as well as the IBIT, so that's the BlackRock XRP ETF, and the ETHA, which I believe is the BlackRock Ethereum ETF as well. So you get the Mag 7 plus Coinbase plus Bitcoin and Ethereum. I think that they're missing XRP. I think that that portfolio right there might actually struggle at this. I mean, launching on September 22nd, Ethereum looking like it's topping out. Looks like Bitcoin top already came in, and the Magnificent 7 already at basically all-time high prices as well too. Without some exposure to some other good utilities that we have in our portfolio, I don't know if I'd be picking that one up, but it goes to show us that Wall Street, and in this case Coinbase, which is becoming a Wall Street firm, right? Also in bed with the government, they're launching and going to be selling us these products in 1,000 different ways. That's the reality. They're going to package up stocks. They're going to package up cryptos. They're going to package up private equity, tokenized real world assets, and they're going to be selling it to you in 1,000 different ways. That's for sure. Now we slide on over. Gemini filing for an IPO to raise $317 million at a $2.2 billion valuation. Now I have to note, Gemini, we like them. They just came on board with the XRP family. And I just have to note, I find it interesting that they bring on the XRP family. They run it up with the XRP credit card, which we're very excited about that product. But does that help the valuation just a little bit? Just a little bit? When you can go to market and you can say, hey, we got tens of thousands of new users from the XRP family, which has a lot of money. That might help that valuation pop up there just a little bit. Shout out to the Winklevoss twins and Gemini for finally getting on board. I know they were probably hesitant. They've never been huge fans of Ripple XRP, I don't think, but we love to see the progress. We love to see. Even the people that don't like us, they know where the money's at, and they're coming to service the XRP family. Love to see it. And we have Nate Garassi here, giving us the updates here on the supply of Bitcoin being acquired through these ETFs. Now, this is not just the ETFs in America. This is the global ETFs now own 7% of the total final Bitcoin supply. So that's of the final 21 million. And a couple million's obviously been lost. Satoshi lost his wallet, so they say. We'll see what happens there. But, you know, give or take, rounding off, about 7% of the total final Bitcoin supply is now held in global ETFs. Nearly 1.5 million Bitcoin. Now, the reason why this is such a great data point is because it can show us what's coming for XRP. We've seen a lack of demand from the Ethereum ETFs. That's just now started to pick up. Since July, we've seen more money flow into the Ethereum ETFs than the Bitcoin ETFs. So that rotation has started, Ethereum lagging, but hey, we're still rooting for Ethereum. We are. I know. You might think that I'm against Ethereum. That's not true. I'm rooting for all bag holders of Ethereum and other bags of crap. I want everybody to win, okay? But we can just follow the data. And what the data is telling us right now is that 7% of the Bitcoin supply has been eaten up by ETFs. Now, the same thing's going to happen for XRP. And I really want folks to understand that the 401k unlock is anywhere from 8 to 12 trillion that can now invest in crypto. And you have to understand, folks have commented at me in my recent video saying that you already can invest your 401k in crypto. Yes, true. But now what happens, the big unlock and the big push and the big shill? Remember, the suits are going to be selling it for us. I don't have to sell any of this. The suits are going to be selling it for us. The suits are going to be shilling it and selling it with slideshow presentations for us. And what happens here is you get a significant rotation into XRP ETFs, and a lot of that money's just going to get parked. It's not going to be day trade. It's not going to be traded over a year or two. This is folks that are locking it up in their tax-preferred, tax-advantaged 401k accounts, and they want to hold for 3, 5, 10 plus years. I mean, for a guy like me, right, if I'm opening up a Roth IRA, I'm going to be parking that XRP in there now and, you know, not selling it for decades to come or ever if I can leverage it, right? And so I think that we've been talking about the ETFs, we've been talking about the 401k unlock, but I really want folks to understand that it's money that's going to come in and park. People are just going to park trillions in these assets with their 401ks, and I think that XRP is going to get a large share of that. Now, combined with the ETFs, we're going to be having conversations about especially the available supply of XRP, right? There's a total 100 billion, there's basically 10 to 15 million XRPs already been burned. And as more XRPs being burned from additional use, you're going to see less XRP available. But right now, the XRP that's available on the exchanges, that's been released from Ripple's escrow, that's actually available, the float of XRP right now, some estimates say that it's only 2 to 5 billion. And so you have a run on 2 to 5, maybe 10 billion XRP, the same XRP that the largest institutions in the world are going to be using for cross-border payments, treasury management, DeFi. For crying out loud, a public company out of China is going to be using the XRP ledger for logistics. Nobody saw that one coming. It's all utility that drives demand for XRP and burns XRP. While the ETFs are locking it up, while the ETFs are, creating, there's now, last week we saw an option ETF for XRP as well too. where you'd be able to invest in the product and earn a yield on that product as well too, trading XRP options. I'm telling you, the suits are going to sell this 1,000 different ways because they are desperate to keep your assets parked with them, which is why you're going to see the shift. And I want you guys to comment along and tell me when you start to see this. For those of you guys that have investment advisors that are working with other people, I want to hear from you guys in the chat. When has the shift occurred? Because what you guys have mostly been hearing from your advisors is, oh, crypto's risky. Okay, you want to do 1% allocation. You want to do 5% allocation. We wouldn't recommend that, but this is your money, so we're going to let you take it out. But just remember, John, that I told you that crypto was risky. Here's 5% of your 401k. I wouldn't do any more. The shift now becomes 10 to 40% allocation if you know what's good for you and if you don't want to get left behind. That's the fact. That's the ROI that we've seen on the price performance of these assets since the election. And you better save your 401k right now. I'm going to be doing a lot of content on 401ks because it's a big unlock, massive opportunity, but you need to save them. You got to save them. And so whether that's rolling over a portion into precious metals, private equity, which is going to get opened up for 401ks in addition to cryptocurrency as well too, you better save your 401k because we have the number is 8 to 12 trillion in 401ks that could roll over here. But that number could change quickly if we shave off 10, 20, 30% from the stock market. And real estate's already in a correction as well too. So we're going to be talking about that going here forward. Stay tuned for that. Big meeting today. And this is what caused XRP to rise despite the Swift FUD, as I titled tonight's episode. Once again, remember, if I clickbait, if it's in the title, if it's in the thumbnail, it's going to be backed up by hard data. It's going to be backed up on the chart. It's going to be backed up by real analysis every single time. If it's in that title, if it's in that thumbnail, we back it up. I call it ethical clickbait. Of course, every YouTuber wants to bait people into watching their content. But the reason why you stay, the reason why you keep coming back, the reason why you smash that thumbs up and share our content out far and wide is because we stay over the target. Now, here's where we're at. In a rare show of unity, the SEC and CFTC just issued a joint statement clarifying that SEC and CFTC registered exchanges are not prohibited from facilitating the trading of certain spot crypto asset products. The comment from SEC Chair Paul Atkins reads off, market participants should have the freedom to choose where they trade spot crypto assets. CFTC Acting Chair Caroline Pham, quote, under the prior administration, our agencies sent mixed signals about regulation and compliance in digital asset markets, but the message was clear. Innovation was not welcome. That chapter is over. The move marks a major step in the agency's Project Crypto and Crypto Sprint initiatives aimed at coordinating oversight while expanding venue choice and optionality for U.S. market participants. Now, Matthew Siegel, who is the head of digital asset research at Van Eck, says the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, CBOE, CME, etc. will soon have spot trading for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and more. So basically, the SEC and CFTC, they're making sure that we have clarity, but they're also making sure that their buddies over there on Wall Street can step on into the party with full clarity on trading crypto. And that includes crypto, even with leverage too. I think that they outlined in the statement as well too. Now, we also actually played a clip from the CEO of Van Eck earlier today in my first update today. We dropped 2 updates and now here we are live. This is what we do on a daily basis because the space is moving so quickly. But in the first update today, we played a clip from the CEO of Van Eck noting that basically the war on crypto is over, right? Echoing these same statements, but now you're seeing it in the guidance from the SEC and the CFTC. The war is over. It's game on. And then you're going to see it codified into law when we pass the Clarity Act as well, which should be done by the end of the year. Now, what we have here, the reason why I titled this episode today, you got people jumping on the FUD campaign saying that Swift is officially dumping XRP for Link. Uh-oh, here we go. The new round of XRP FUD. They are trying to keep you out of XRP so bad. They want exit liquidity desperately. He says this means that if you're not all in on Chainlink, you deserve to be poor. Hey, real quick before I read this off, because I genuinely am asking this question. What's the value proposition of Oracle service providers when AI can provide the same Oracle service for free or next to nothing? I mean, I think this is a serious question, and we got to address this. I understand currently you need to have your Oracle service providers tap in that data, but what is AI? AI is an Oracle service provider. You prompt it, and it's an Oracle. It goes out and finds data for you. Now, it's going to go to centralized entities and centralized data feeds to get that data, but what's stopping this whole process of Oracle service providing being done automatically through AI? Where's the value proposition or need for a token like Chainlink? And yes, I hold a bag of Flare, but I'm now considering and asking myself the same question in regards to my investment in Flare. What's the value prop? How much can a Oracle service provider really charge? How much of a business model do you really have if AI can do it for free or next to nothing? All it takes is plugging in the API. Developers that are much smarter than me can probably facilitate this tomorrow. I mean, what am I missing? Especially for the use cases of real-world assets, DeFi, etc. The Oracle that you're, the data that you're looking to get is black and white data, right? What's the price of XRP? You prompt the AI to provide that data from 5 different exchanges, just like CoinMarketCap does. CoinMarketCap is an Oracle provider, essentially, right? And it's an aggregator of data. And how long till this process is automated? What is the value proposition of Chainlink? And to be fair, I'm asking the same thing about my investment in Flare, and I want Flare to pump. And I'll throw it in here real quick too. We just saw a note from Flare today saying that we're going to get F assets. We're going to get XRP, F XRPs is what it's going to be called. DeFi for XRP brought to you by Flare is coming before December. In fact, they even used the word imminent. Now, I'm not going to hold my breath, because if I would have been holding my breath waiting for Flare, I would be long gone by now. We've been waiting a very long time. Right? So we're supposed to get F assets for XRP and others before December, and they even said imminent. But now I'm sitting back and, I went to go look at Chainlink, and I said, okay, let's get updated. They're spreading all this FUD against us, but we're going to do what we do. We don't turn around and try to get involved in this back and forth with all this drama. I'm just going to go do a deep dive and an update on Chainlink. And it got me to thinking, with AI, what need is there for a link token? What need is there, and how much can you actually create in a business model being an Oracle service provider when that gets tapped in through AI, simple API connections? I'm not a techie, so I'm not an expert. I'm genuinely asking the question, but I'm raising an eyebrow or two, a question here. What's the real value proposition? But back to the title of today's episode. XRP rises despite Swift FUD. This is the Chief Innovation Officer at Swift, Tom Zach. And he's responding to somebody here who's talking about Ripple XRP stands alone as the blockchain that's been battle-hardened for nearly 5 years of intense regulatory scrutiny, proving its resilience like no other. For over a decade, Ripple has been vocal about prioritizing compliance, trust, and interoperability. Working hand in hand with global regulators to meet stringent standards while driving innovation in cross-border payments. For whatever reason, the Chief Innovation Officer at Swift, Tom Zach, decides to chime in. And what does he say? Surviving lawsuits isn't resilience. Neutral, shared governance is. So he's taking a shot saying that the XRP ledger governance is not neutral. Okay. Institutions don't want to live on a competitor's rails. And compliance isn't about one company convincing regulators it should be allowed to operate. It's about an entire industry agreeing on shared standards that no single balance sheet controls. Now, what you see here is an attack and confusing governance with token supply. and another jab at the fact that Ripple has so much XRP, which is the big point that everybody's hung up on. They don't trust Ripple, right? And they're not happy that Ripple has this big bag of XRP. They're not happy that Chris Larson is one of the one of the richest people in the world. One of the richest people in the world. And here we have Tom, the chief innovation officer at Swift, who doesn't understand the difference between governance of the XRP ledger and token supply. Yes, Ripple has the most amount of tokens and the largest amount of supply, but they've actually been one of the most responsible and transparent treasury companies in existence. When it comes to governance of the XRP ledger, Ripple only runs one of 35 validators that make up and confirm the XRP ledger. And of the 35 validators on the UNL, you need 80% consensus to move the ledger forward. So even if Ripple did have a couple buddies and a couple universities and a couple partners that they helped get to become validators on the XRP ledger, you still need 80% consensus. And I should note that there are validators right now on the UNL list that do not like Ripple, that talk a lot of crap about Ripple, that have actually said some things that I didn't like to hear about Ripple, that were false about Ripple. But that is a truly permissionless network. And yet you have the chief innovation officer at Swift that doesn't get this. It's truly incredible. And the fact that he goes on to say that, compliance isn't about one company convincing regulators it should be allowed to operate. It's about an entire industry agreeing on shared standards. Who funded and helped us have the most successful election in crypto's history? That was Ripple, along with a few other industry players, but Ripple led that. Ripple was cutting the biggest checks to fund this last election, and it led to us electing the most amount of crypto candidates we've ever elected. It was such a threat that mainstream media has been in a full-on panic ever since it happened, because they realized, oh crap, crypto's here. Crypto has a lot of money, and they're here to stay, and they're willing to fund people on both sides of the aisle, left or right, that are willing to advance their agenda. But it obviously skewed more towards Republicans. And so you had the mainstream media in full meltdown. You had 60 Minutes, who brought on Brad Garlinghouse. The counter opponent was John Reed Stark from the SEC. That was an absolute joke. And you got 60 Minutes putting out little hit piece against Ripple, right? And you saw the panic. This is where the locked in picture from Brad Garlinghouse comes from, is his interview with CBS on 60 Minutes. Because they were being so ridiculous. They were so threatened by the fact that Ripple has so much money to influence elections properly, the right way, right? Funding good Americans that you want to see represent the people and represent our interests the way that is supposed to be done. And it's incredible how much panic there has been in DC ever since this last election, when they realized how big the crypto vote was. They started to freak out, because what happened was these smaller local elections were tight races, right? And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you have crypto money pour in. And then it wasn't even close. Some of these races ended up being landslides because of the crypto money. And once again, they funded people on both sides. This isn't political. This is level playing field. This is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness on a level playing field for all Americans, so help us God. Can I get an amen? Huh? Chat, did you enjoy watching 60 Minutes and the rest of mainstream media as much as I did? Panic, shaking in their boots. This is where Brad leaned in, that locked in picture that's going around so viral. And I love using that one in my thumbnails. Really sets the tone for the video. We've been locked in ever since. And the best part about this, too, we had all that money to fund those elections when XRP was at 50 cents. That's why they're so scared. Because we got even more now, right? I mean, we printed a 500%. They are absolutely scared to death, whether it be Swift, whether it be Chainlink, whether it be the Bitcoin maxis, whether it be the mainstream media, right? Whether it be the anti-crypto army, Elizabeth Warren, Maxine Waters. They don't even know what it's called. They're calling it Bitcom. Do these people even have a cell phone? And here we are making crypto legislation with them? Do they even know where they're at? I thought this was a great post by Neatsbucks. When the chief innovation officer at Blockbuster Video starts lecturing you on the next 50 years of technology, you have to wonder why they seem to have such a hard-on for one competitor in particular. I didn't mean to say that. I meant to say such an obsession. I didn't mean to say that. But it's true, right? You're asking Swift, which hasn't updated since 1970, for crying out loud. And they act surprised, and now they're panicked, and now they want to send shots after 50 years. You had 50 years to innovate. Some of the brightest minds and the biggest money behind Swift, and yet they still can't figure it out. Here we are in 2025, and they don't understand the basics about XRP ledger governance. Once again, this all comes back to the effort that we have right now with what I'm doing in my platform, and I couldn't do without your support, and I urge you to continue spreading the word as well too, whether it's sharing out my content or just you spreading the good word here. Crypto education. We are significantly lacking crypto education. When the chief innovation officer of Swift is this ignorant about the XRP ledger, we have work to do. Just imagine how far lost the masses are when they're trying to understand crypto, right? Now, what's so interesting about this is the CIO, or Chief Innovation Officer of Swift, just 2 weeks ago, he actually shouted out Ripple for acquiring Rail, right? The stablecoin company that does over 10% of the volume of B2B payments worldwide. Rail, the stablecoin company that Ripple acquired for $200 million. The Chief Innovation Officer at Swift actually called this a checkmate move. So just 2 weeks ago, he's putting respect on it, is showing some respect to the game. And here we are 2 weeks later, and he's saying that XRP is a dead chain. You can't make this stuff up, folks. And I would have forgotten about this if it wasn't for Dennis. I want to give a huge shout out to Dennis. I think that I saw he already dropped a super chat here. We'll get to the super chats here shortly and the rest of your guys' Q&A. But I want to give a shout out to Dennis for actually tagging me in this post. And I went back and looked, and sure enough, this is the Chief Innovation Officer at Swift calling Ripple's strategic move in acquiring Rail a checkmate move, right? This is another checkmate moment. And he added that the race is nowhere near over, but that the landscape is getting a little more crowded, indicating that Ripple's progress has not gone unnoticed. So just 2 weeks ago, respect on the game. Fast forward here, doesn't understand the basics of the XRP ledger. It's what we call a swing and a miss from the Chief Innovation Officer at Swift. I mean, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't be surprised when we're talking about an institution that's still using 50-year-old technology to move money across the world. I don't know why I would be surprised. But I wanted to hone in here, folks, because you have the IMF and the BIS reiterating the same things here about the difference between the XRP ledger, proof of authority, and consensus mechanism versus proof of work and proof of stake. So it's interesting. Chief Innovation Officer at Swift, swing and a miss. IMF telling us that proof of work will not be viable as a consensus mechanism amongst many regulated financial service activities, especially since it's too energy intensive and uses probabilistic settlement, not holding back in their criticism. They also tell us that proof of stake will have some of these issues because of its probabilistic settlement as well, while the XRP ledger offers deterministic settlement. So the IMF gets it. Now, the new general manager for the Bank for International Settlement since July of 2025, who replaced Augustus Carson, his name is Pablo Hernandez de Cas, former head of Bank of Spain and ECB official, will serve a 5-year term. He wrote a paper on crypto assets in 2022. In my opinion, he wrote something that is bullish for the XRP ledger in contrast to other types of consensus mechanisms. He said, and the paper was named Crypto Assets, a Financial Authority's View. In the paper, he discusses 3 different consensus mechanisms: proof of work, proof of stake, and proof of authority. He's more critical of 2 of the consensus mechanisms, proof of work and proof of stake, while he's more positive about proof of authority. For proof of work, I'm not even going to read into this. For proof of authority, he doesn't give any critique, but he notes that validators under this system is known, and thus they rely on reputation instead of economic interest. It's not how much money you have, it's how respected are you on the ledger. That's how you get on the UNL list. Now, anybody can publish a UNL list. The 35 validators that have been selected have been put out by Ripple has put out a UNL list, and the XRP Ledger Foundation has put out a UNL list. This is the list of 35 validators that come to consensus to move the XRP Ledger forward, to vote on amendments, and for governance. Okay? Versus on proof of stake, it's all about who has the largest stake, right? On Bitcoin, who puts out the most amount of work or hash power, right? And this is why you have 4 large mining pools, which make up over 50% of the Bitcoin mining right now. Bitcoin is actually centralized by these mining pools right now. Now, there's many miners that make up these pools. I understand the nuance here. I understand that conversation. But once again, when you have 4 large mining pools making up over 50% of the network, if they decide to switch things up, it's easily done. Easily done. Okay? With proof of stake, we've seen the point. And I should shut up. Let me shut up for a second. And let's just refer back to what the BIS just said. Let's refer back to what the IMF just said. The chief innovation officer at Swift, swing and a miss. But at least he put some respect on the game 2 weeks ago, noting the acquisition of Rail. And this is all on top of Chainlink FUD, Bitcoin Maxi FUD, everybody attacking the XRP family. And as Bill Morgan says right here, so from 2016 to 2020, people attacked XRP for being a banker's coin, and now they attack Ripple for supposedly not having banking partners or XRP not being used by banks, and make a virtue of Link having banking partnerships. Effing hypocrites. That's what Bill Morgan said. Right? And it is so hilarious and so ironic. Right? First we're the banker's coin, and now they try to make the argument that we don't have any banking partnerships. It's all Chainlink. It's make it up as you go for all of this FUD, right? They have nothing to stand on. And here's the best part, the finishing point that I'm going to make on this whole thing before we go into, I'm going to take a quick look at the charts with you guys, and then we'll go into rapid fire Q&A. Here's the best part about this. Every time they put out FUD, whether it be a TikToker putting out a little TikToky with some XRP FUD, whether it be some tweets about XRP FUD from the Chainlink bros or Ethereum or Bitcoin Maxis or the chief innovation officer at Swift. Every time one of these guys runs their little mouth and gets to yapping, what it does is it makes people who are interested in getting real answers and actually getting educated about the matter, they look into it further. That video that might be XRP FUD sparks them interest in XRP, so then they go ask AI. Then they do Google search. Then they come across my content. Then they come across the XRP truth. And they come across other great XRP content creators that provide the truth about XRP. And eventually, and over time, we end up winning over more people that would have never known about XRP if it wouldn't have been for this obsession. I mean, for crying out loud, right? The comments that Robert Breedlove, the Bitcoin Maxi guy, said last week. I'm not going to repeat the words, but he said that basically, if you invest in XRP, you're an R word. I'm not going to say it. I don't want to get in trouble. You guys know what I'm talking about. And what's funny is I looked up some of these guys, and I look at their YouTube channel, and I think, who the hell are these guys? I've never heard of these guys, right? And I've known to Breedlove because he's been putting out XRP FUD for a couple years. But I look at the guy's channel, and I'm like, holy cow, dude. Big shot, big timer, can't even get 5,000 views per video? I mean, these guys are cooked. They have no attention other than when they FUD XRP. I'm telling you, their platforms are dying out. As someone in the business, when I looked across his channel, I was like, you couldn't hand this channel off to somebody else. No motion, no traction, no attention. Who would want this? And clearly nobody's listening to it. Other than when you spread the XRP FUD, they live in that moment for a second. They're 15 minutes of fame. and then they go back to being irrelevant and nobody listening to their Bitcoin Maxi podcast. And we win over more people. See, we end up winning in the end, whether it's FUD from Chainlink, Bitcoin, Swift, you name it. We end up winning in the end because the truth sets you free. You guys know that. That's why you're tuning into my show, because you're hungry for the truth. Right? Now let's get into the TNA, which is looking fantastic. XRP rising up, as we titled it, XRP rallies despite Swift FUD. And that was basically started after the SEC put out the news. So last night and yesterday, XRP comes back down to 270. Okay, back test. A lot of people scared. Even myself, I had to go buy the dip. Added to my XRP long. And just like that, the SEC, and this is what I've been saying the whole time. I said, guys, all it takes is one tweet from President Trump, from the SEC and the CFTC putting out joint guidance. All it takes is one tweet. All it takes is one press release, and we're back off to the races. I mean, for crying out loud, we could use another tweet from Brad Garlinghouse acknowledging that the SEC versus Ripple case is over and that we do have the mandate. You know, I know that Brad's been enjoying himself here lately. He's been busy too. But, you know, we haven't even gotten another tweet from Brad. That might give us a little, you know, a nice little boost as well too. But here we are. All it took was the SEC and CFTC putting out this guidance, and we're back off to the races once again. Now, you know, are we back above $3? No. Are we back to all-time high? No. So you can comment down below and tell me that I shouldn't call this a rally. Zach, how dare you call this a rally? We're not back up to $3. We're not back up to all-time high. There's a spot down below for you to put a comment and tell me how you really feel. And there's a spot where you can hit a thumbs up or a thumbs down, so please smack that as well too. Okay? And let us know how you really feel. But the fact of the matter is, this is how the game is played. From an XRP long position that I first bought over $3.40 to lowering that average down to 292, amassing the biggest XRP long position I've ever had in my life, and getting that average down from 340 to 292 just by consistently buying the dip. This is why we work our butts off every single day. So we have that liquidity, so we can keep extra margin. We can't get liquidated. The market makers are hunting us down. They can't clip us up. They can't catch us. And then we just keep adding to the dip. And then we lower from 340 average all the way down to 292. And so when this sucker bounces back above $3, back up to $4, we are going to be making a lot of money. And so right now, as I record this update, we're at $2.85 for XRP. Big levels to capture back, but the rally is back. I think that the bottom is in. So just note that your time is running out to acquire XRP below $3. Targets and timelines remain. And we'll get right on into that here shortly. Real quick, Bitcoin back up to 111, Ethereum up to 4,300. Market just moving back up. Market moving back up. I'm not seeing anything else that's sticking out to me right now. All that's looking real good. Yep. Okay. And before I get into the rapid fire Q&A, let me just remind everybody, we showed you the math. Once again, XRP ETFs are set to go live here in October. Canary Capital CEO predicts 5 billion inflows first month. JP Morgan predicts 4 to 8 billion first year. Somewhere in between is the truth. And I think that it will be, 10 billion plus first year of inflows into XRP ETFs. Now, that's just the ETFs. That doesn't include the digital asset treasury companies. It doesn't include broader institutional adoption. It doesn't include public companies out of China using it for supply chain logistics. It doesn't include NFTs, meme coins, real world assets, and DeFi expanding on the XRP ledger. I could go on and on and on. But just the ETFs alone takes us to double digits with ease. Here's the math behind it. Go back to November 2024. It's the most comparable month to when the first month of ETFs will be live. ETFs are going live. It opens up. We're having a party. We celebrate. Money's coming in. Compare it to November of 2024 when Trump won the election and we knew that we were off to the races. It wasn't just a meme. We have it on the hat behind us for a reason. We went all in XRP for a dang good reason. Full transparency, I'm 90% XRP. You guys already know that. Here's what happens. 105 billion. 105.09 billion of market cap growth during November. off of only 118 million of inflows. Your multiplier for that month was 883. Now, I will note that I took a snapshot of 4 weeks. It didn't include like the first 3 days of November. So it was like November 4th to 11th, and then like all the way through December 1st. So I'm missing a few days, but those few days were red days before the election, right? So really not going to make much of a difference. The point being, just over 100 million in net inflows into XRP. In fact, if I added those first few days in November, they were probably days with outflows. And so that number would probably actually come down on the net inflows for the month. But round off, keep it simple, stupid. The old KISS principle, my grandfather taught me that. I still live by that today, especially when I'm dealing with math because I'm not a math whiz. My mom made me stick out math champs even though I wanted to quit. She said, nope, you're going to keep going. I said, Mom, these kids are way smarter than me. I'm holding back the team. She says, nope, I didn't raise a quitter. You're going to keep doing math champs. So I did 4th grade math champs. But that was when it started to get a little advanced for me. You know, we got into some equations that were a little too much. And I'm fine admitting that. I'm not here to be a math whiz. I'm not your guy for being your quant. Interestingly enough, just looking at simple math reveals the truth. That's the important piece, though. You don't have to be a math whiz or be doing some advanced calculus to divide your change in market cap by the net flows to determine what your multiplier is. 883. So what happens when you get 5 billion of inflows times 883? Your market cap would be adding up to 4,415 billion. What price of XRP is that? Well, that's a $73 XRP. Is that how it's going to play out? No. Let me be very clear. That might be too bullish. It might be too bearish. Remember, in this example, we have 4 weeks. 4 weeks of inflows that we tracked, 7 days a week of trading. With the ETFs, we only get 5 days of trading. Thanksgiving's going to be a holiday too. So that first month, October, November timeframe, we're taking Thanksgiving off as well too. So with even less days for 5 billion to flow into XRP, that multiplier gets even more dramatic. But if that's too bullish, if that's too much, cut it in half. What are you looking at? A $35, $40 XRP? Is that too much? Let's only take a third. Zach, the multiplier is not going to be 800. It's only going to be a third of that. Okay. $20 to $30 XRP. Is that not enough? Right? And this is why I say my base case here is a $20 to $30 XRP after the ETFs go live. And it could take up to a year, but I think it happens sooner rather than later. Here's the last kicker before I get to your guys' Q&A. The injunction that Judge Torres kept in place. And from what I've gathered and what I've looked into, it is going to stop Ripple from selling to the ETF issuers directly. Now, the reason being is because this would be the type of sale that Judge Torres ruled was an investment contract. The judge said, you sell XRP to exchanges, that's not a problem. You pay people XRP for their services, that's not an investment contract, that's not a security. But when you package up XRP in a contract that you sell to institutions that they're going to then use, you have an investment contract. So what happens here is because the injunction is still in place, I do not believe that Ripple is going to be able to sell to the ETF issuers directly. So that means that the ETF issuers have to go get the the XRP from somewhere, right? And that means they're going to centralized exchanges, OTC desks. That means they're going somewhere to get that XRP, right? Which only drives more of a supply shock against XRP, right? The fact that they can't get it from Ripple means that the only XRP that's going to be available is the XRP on centralized exchanges and other OTC desks right now. And the big question, the last question that remains for me, and maybe many of you guys as well too, is Ripple going to lever up how much XRP they're selling to exchanges and OTC desks to help facilitate those ETFs coming into the XRP? Because remember, the spot XRP ETFs have to be backed by physical XRP. The 2X XRP from Tucrium. I interviewed Sal at XRP Las Vegas. That's not physically backed by XRP. But the spot ETFs, they are backed by XRP. So this could drive even a bigger supply shock unless Ripple decides, okay, we're just going to start dumping $1 billion per month to the exchanges who can then sell off to the ETF issuers. So then that new demand would be met with new supply and we wouldn't see the price increase from the ETFs. But ask yourself this question. Does Ripple have an incentive to keep XRP at $3? Or does Ripple have an incentive to see XRP go to much higher prices and stabilize at much higher prices, I should add, right? You could make the argument that maybe they wanted to stabilize XRP and keep it cheap for some time here, and then they want to let it breathe and set it free. But eventually, the largest holder of XRP, one would assume, would want XRP to go up in price. So the incentives are aligned. And I also think that the injunction is going to prohibit Ripple from selling to the ETF issuers directly, which then opens us up for a real supply shock scenario when those ETFs do go live. Now, with that being said, I want to get into our rapid fire comments and questions. Let's check on our super chats. I did see we got a few super chats that did come in. So thank you so much for your support. It really does help us out. Let's start off here from the top. We got Petro Pro coming in hot to start us off with the 5 spot. $7 XRP by September 15th. Let's go XRP Army. USA is back. Yeah, Petro Pro. Yeah, I got $4 to $5 XRP this month, and I'm looking at the $7 XRP target coming in before the ETFs go live, and that's looking like October. So $4 to $5 here shortly. I think that we'll find resistance at 450 to 470, come back down a little bit, but then we should be able to clear out. We'll basically fill up the order book. The sellers will come in, they'll offload their XRP at that level, and then eventually the buyers will take back over, and we're going to run up to, I think, $7 to $8 before those ETFs go live in October. So yeah, we're still on track for that. Daniel, thank you. Silver is also looking very good. It's just absolutely fantastic. This metal is now over $41 per ounce. I think it even hit $42 per ounce today. I didn't see where it finished off at, but I will check on that. Dennis, there he is. Thank you. I gave you a shout out earlier, Dennis. Hopefully you saw that. Thank you for sharing me that article on the chief investment officer at Swift. Actually putting some respect on the name of Ripple. We like to see that. Rick Edelman manages $300 million. And yeah, he's one of the most respected fund managers, investment advisors in the world. And he's saying 10 to 40% allocation. And so, yeah, you look at, 8 to 12 trillion being in 401ks right now. If we just get 10% of that, 12 trillion, right? That's 1.2 trillion. If it's 8 trillion, that would be 800 billion coming to crypto. And like I said, I think when it comes to 401ks, the older demographic coming into crypto loves XRP. That's just a fact. The older demographic coming into crypto, yeah, they might want to pick up a few memes here and there and play around a little bit, but they're mostly obsessed with XRP. Like we get called the boomer coin. We get called the boomer chain. I lean into that. I love that. Boomers have money. There's a lot of hate thrown around at boomers, and some of it maybe, okay, we're all different. My millennial generation's an embarrassment. I can speak on behalf of all millennials and say that some of us millennials don't want to align ourselves with some of our cohorts. But when it comes to the boomers, we got money, big money. And that's why all the service providers, whether they like us or not, they're coming to service the XRP family because they know what we hold. Not only big bags of XRP, but we got a lot of money behind that. And so to me, it's just a matter of when these 401k, advisors and managers of pension funds, etc., when they finally start to push this, their clients are going to be ringing the phone, hitting them up. Hey, get me some exposure to that XRP, please. And they won't care whether it's in an ETF or what. They won't worry about that. They trust their money manager to do that. They say, can you get me some of that XRP thing? that XRP crypto stuff. Thank you. That's the end of the conversation. And they're going to say, yeah, I want to park it there. I'm going to hold it till it hits $1,000. And, the investment advisor, he's going to be, whoa. No, I don't know about that. Crypto's risky enough, but there's no way XRP is going to $1,000. And you'll tell, no, I understand. That's your opinion. Thank you. Move my allocation to XRP, park it, and leave it there. Thank you very much. That's the conversation that you're going to be having with your fund manager, your investment advisor. It's coming. Now, Dennis comes in. Yep, Dennis, you must have seen. Yep, I did share your clip. Yep, the chief innovation officer at Swift. Yep. No guns, just knife. Thank you. Hello, Zach. Super great to see you on Paul Barron today. Next stop, the Patrick Bet David podcast. Hey, I'd love to. You guys tag up PBD. Tell him if he needs me to come down to Florida, I will. I'd love to. Mad respect for PBD. Love his channel, love his platform. It would be an absolute honor. And really, he's had Michael Saylor on. I don't know if he's had Tom Lee, but he's had, other crypto people. But we need some exposure for XRP on the PBD. Now, he did a couple great segments, I should say, where I think he compared XRP to Swift, etc. He's given XRP a fair shot. And that's why I respect PBD. Yeah, respect. Dennis, Torres ruling firms must buy from exchanges. Price goes higher. Supply shock. Absolutely. Now, why am I missing my super chat from my good friend 1970 Legend? Where is he at? Where's my good friend 1970? There he is. Oh. I want to make sure you guys can see this. Right there. 1970 Legend comes in with a big 2 hundo spot. Celebrated my 55th birthday yesterday. From the time you read this, make the 55th order free up to $100 and you keep the rest. P.S. Wen Moon. Brother, I appreciate that so much. That's massive. I appreciate that. I don't know what you make the 55th order free. Somebody says Legend does it again. Great job, my friend. Zach needs a sponsor. I appreciate that. Brother, I don't know what you mean make the 55th. We gave away the last time Legend wanted to do a giveaway. He said, "Hey, let's do a giveaway. Let's do some hats." I said, "Okay, I like to gamble a little bit. And I don't go full degen. Like I said at the beginning, I don't play the lottery, but I like to roll the dice a little bit, right?" So I said, okay, Legend wants to give away some hats. He gave me some super chats. Let's do it. So I told you guys, I said, hey, anybody who gets it in order tonight, we're going to send you a free XRP hat. Well, you guys had 50 plus orders. So we ended up giving away over 50 hats. And I should mention, we ran out of supply. You guys, bought us out essentially. And so what we ended up doing from that giveaway is we sent orders for those of you guys that ordered a shirt, and then we were going to give you a free hat. While we were waiting for our hats to come in, we did ship some of the shirts and t-shirts, sweatshirts, etc. So if you're still waiting for your hat to arrive, we got delays over the weekend with the holiday weekend. But I just am getting feedback now that the hats are coming in too. So for any of you guys that still didn't get your free hat, everything's been shipped. Everything's been shipped, so it should be on the way. Okay. And if you guys have any inquiries to that, just hit us up. merch@zachrector.com is the email, and we'll love to get you filled out. 1970 Legend, I'm going to message you, brother. I'll talk to you off the chat here, and I'll figure out what you wanted to do with that live, because I'm not sure I understand. 55 orders from now. What is that? I'm not sure what that means. You want to do another one? Yep. Okay. Let's go back to the rapid fire Q&A. Thank you so much, guys, for stopping in. Let's go right here. Here we go. Happy birthday to Legend, though. 55 years of age. I know you're still looking young, brother, and big bags of XRP will help tremendously. Checking your guys' chats right now. Zach, I'm with Caleb and Brown, and I spoke to my broker. My broker was saying there is no way XRP is going to reach $20 to $30 anytime soon. My conversation with Caleb and Brown was not very positive. Well, here's the fact. As your broker, right, we conduct business with them. So it's not up to us to convince them that XRP is going to go to 20 or 30 bucks. Right? I know that at Caleb and Brown, there's people there that are not big XRP army guys, right? They love and respect the XRP family, right? Because we bring them a lot of good business, but not everybody there is into that, right? And you should send them my videos. They're probably somebody new at Caleb and Brown who, is still getting caught up to speed. Send them my content and we'll show them with hard data and simple math how easy it is for XRP to go to 20 or 30 bucks. But that's the joy, is you don't need your broker to agree with you. You just need them to execute your order. We're here to, conduct the business transaction. That's all it is. That's all it is. Yeah. But I'd be curious to see how that conversation was actually playing out. I'm actually going to have Jim Bazzani back on the show next week too. So I'm going to tell Jim, Jim, whoever at Caleb and Brown says XRP can't go to 20 to 30 bucks, you send him my video right now. Let's get him caught up to speed. Now, if you guys have questions for Caleb and Brown, send them my way. I'm going to have Jim back on the show next week to get an update from their team. Really looking forward to that one. As always, what we do here is we want to bring you guys the community resources that I find valuable myself and that I know you guys will benefit from as well too. And so I'm very excited. Our relationship with Caleb and Brown has been fantastic. We just had another really good month as far as onboarding a lot of people to their platform. And I've gotten nothing but positive feedback from the community on that. So that's my objective, is to make sure that our community is being taken care of. And as I've said, I do trading on other platforms. I've put out a free tutorial for anybody that wants to trade on the XRP Ledger DEX without any middlemen. So I'm not just here to show you the platforms that I make affiliate revenue from. I also show you tutorials step by step how to use the XRP Ledger DEX without any middlemen. So nobody can say that all we do is just shill platforms here. I show what I believe in, and I don't run away from that at all. I show you what I believe in, but I never give financial advice or tell you what to do or when to buy. I just say when I'm buying, I say what I'm buying. I don't tell you the exact dollar amount, but I did drop a portfolio update where I gave the percentages to my community. But yeah, let me know. Let me know if you guys have any questions for them. Also, excited to start working with I Trust Capital too. They got the 401k products available, and then they've also rolled out the PCA accounts too. And so that'll be good. That'll be really good. Let's go back to rapid fire Q&A. I want to make sure we get through your questions here. HBAR target for this bull run. Go to my 2025 coin review playlist and check out the deep dive that I did on HBAR. The targets still stand. $1.50 base case, 220 is, I think, as high as I could see HBAR going this bull run. I just did a deep dive on Crow as well too, CRO. That's in the 2025 coin review playlist as well. I'm showing what I believe in. My God, I'm dying. And it's just the truth. I don't run away from that at all. I don't hide from that fact at all. That's the honesty and transparency that our community has come to love from me. As I'll tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. Not here to be liked, here to be effective. Caleb and Brown. Yeah, if you're looking for the link, just go to my website. It's linked up in the community resources. While we're on the topic, real quick, Somebody just locked in a one-on-one session on Friday. Yeah, if you guys do want to schedule a one-on-one with me, it's available on the website as well too. You just find the one-on-one link in the community resources. You sign up on Calendly, you book a call, and we get it scheduled. And now's the time to book your call before the schedule fills up, because as soon as XRP pumps, we go back up to all-time high. My schedule fills up, and I also just start removing time slots because I'm so focused on executing my trades in my portfolio, right? I wish I could do one-on-ones all day and just help as many people as possible going over their portfolios, their business, their life, etc. It's not scalable, and we're in the fourth quarter of this bull run, and so I'm trying to get to as many as I can, but the schedule does tighten up as soon as that market starts to turn back up. So if you want to get a one-on-one with me, now's the time to book it. One more thing that I'm going to shill, and then we'll get back to rapid fire Q&A. I just want to make you guys aware, with the Gemini credit card, you can earn up to 4% back on gas, EV charging, transit, taxis, and rideshare, 3% on dining, 2% on groceries, 1% on everything else. And the intro promo right now is get $200 in XRP after spending $3,000 in the first 90 days. No annual fee, no foreign transaction fee. And if you use my code, which is linked up in the description of this video, you can get an extra $50 in crypto. And for you guys on TikTok, the Gemini credit card is linked up in my bio. And I was able to sign up and get approved in 2 minutes. I'm not telling you to go into bad debt. I'm not telling you to run up the credit card on stupid stuff. Be responsible. I'm planning on using this credit card on everyday purchases, getting my XRP back, paying off the credit card every month, running up the credit score, making XRP back. Win-win. Right? Where do the Gemini rewards come from? Great question. Yeah. So Gemini has partnered up with Ripple, and Gemini's getting their XRP, I believe, from Ripple, right? And they're going to need a lot of XRP to facilitate this one. So it's going to drive even more supply shock on XRP. Yep. Salvador Ramirez, I see you with the super chat there, my friend. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Salvador. Oh, we just had another super chat come in there from Tornado. We have seen retail FOMO, but institutional FOMO excites me. That's something we haven't seen before and its potential impact. Love you, Zach. So I think it's still really being underestimated, these amendments that are going to pass on the XRP ledger, and the way that they'll allow institutions to use the XRP ledger DEX and AMM liquidity pools in a compliant way with the laws and regulations for banks and institutions being very strict. They cannot be in the same liquidity pool as a terrorist or sanctioned entity. And so what the permission DEX does is, and the best example is Swift, right? If Swift wanted to bring all 11,000 member banks onto the XRP ledger DEX and build out their own liquidity pool, they would do so through a permission DEX, where you would have to show your credentials. Hey, I'm a Swift member. I'm a Swift member bank. Out of the 11,000, I can be in this liquidity pool. You show your credentials, which is one amendment, and then you get access to the permission DEX, which is another amendment that's about to get passed. Now, I believe, did XRPL credentials amendment pass? I believe it did. Oh, it's not passed yet. Okay, so it's still up for voting. Okay, there you go. Yeah, and see, still underestimating. This isn't covered. Now, I'll make videos on this, and it'll get half as many views as other videos do, because every time I talk about the tech, the amendments, the XRP ledger, it does not do as good as XRP Hopium, obviously, but we still do it because we want our community to understand your investment. We want you to understand the XRP ledger, unlike the chief innovation officer at Swift, which doesn't understand the basics of the XRP ledger governance, right? So I'll do a separate video here on permission DEX and credentials. Going to be massive for allowing institutions to use our DEX in a compliant way. Massive. Yeah. And I mean, the example, I love this one. A public company out of China chooses the XRP ledger for supply chain logistics. Most of us thought that supply chain was just going to be VET and maybe a couple other ledgers. Nobody thought that the XRP ledger was going to be used for supply chain logistics. Now it is, by a public company out of China. So yeah, we're moving quickly in that direction. Have we seen any correlation to XRP ledger movement in the XRP price? That actually worries me. Jake, that's a really good question. And yes. Go back to November. Not only did the election and President Trump help pump crypto, but at that time, that was when First Ledger launched, which is the platform and launchpad for XRP meme coins, which sounds stupid, sounds ridiculous. But what it did is it spiked up the volume on the XRP ledger DEX, AMM, the total value lock, and then more wallets and more users started coming to the XRP ledger as well too. So it coincided. Now, was it the biggest driving factor for XRP price? No. Trump, the overall general tailwinds that we got behind us really pushed it, but it also was true that the XRP ledger activity really started to pick up. It's been falling off lately, which has coincided with XRP's price coming down. One of the best examples that you could look at is Solana. Solana had billions of volume of trading crap coins every day, and it still was able to drive, Solana to a pretty high price and valuation, amassing pretty significant total value lock. Even a crappy meme coin on Solana can still run up to tens of millions, even hundreds of millions in market cap. Versus the XRP ledger, where our largest tokenized asset, Sologenic, I think went up to maybe a few hundred million market cap. That's like our number one coin on the XRP ledger. And it's not even a meme coin. It's a real utility project. So it shows you the scale. We still have a long ways to go, but it will correlate with XRP price because it drives more demand for the asset to get access to meme coins, NFTs, access liquidity pools, etc. Okay, Dennis, thank you for commenting that. Oh, let me refresh this. There we go. Credentials is in the 2-week waiting period. There you go. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you. 1970 comes in again. He says, just pick one lucky listener to receive a hoodie, hat, and dog tag on your next live. I'll let you decide how. Okay, you got it, legend. You got it. Who is this person? How did you come up with this name? Pelosi's and Satoshi's. You guys amaze me with these usernames. Hive. Ripple equity hit 289 per share today. We all know shady things happen in our markets, but when will the internet distinguish XRP and Ripple? Well, so that's a real marketplace for private equity right now. Hive, Equity Zen, and then obviously Link2. And so if Hive is now offering it at 289 per share, and if people are buying it at that level, I mean, I've been saying they're going to have the largest IPO in the history of the world if they do IPO. It'll be more than 25.6 billion from Saudi Aramco. They're going to have the largest IPO if they IPO. So if Hive, a platform which offers private equity, I know that they have Ripple available. If they're offering it at 289 per share, that tells me that they have buyers up at that level. Now, the last buyback offer that Ripple did, I believe, was at $180 per share, either $160 or $180 per share. The last tender offer. So, yeah. But why can't we search Ripple? It always leads to XRP. Well, it's just part of the broader crypto education that we're trying to, share and conduct right now. We still have a lot of work to do educating the masses on crypto, but especially XRP and Ripple and the difference between the two. So, I would agree. I would agree with your comment that it is unfortunate to see the confusion here in 2025 still happening so prevalently, or being so prevalent. It shouldn't be happening. But it's part of the broader crypto adoption and education that we're going to have to continue. Yeah. Yep. But hey, I know that many people in our community that got Ripple equity at $20, $30, $40, $50, $60 per share. And I am kicking myself like never before. And I actually really worry that I may look back and it might have been one of my biggest mistakes by not jumping on Ripple private equity when I had an opportunity to buy it at $24 per share. Whoopsies. What are your thoughts on Claver's predictions? I'm getting asked those questions a lot. Yeah, I just talked with Jake 2 weeks ago. We had a really good conversation about everything that they're working on over there and building out. I like to stay, in touch with Jake. I communicate with him and Max pretty frequently, and obviously I know Mikkel as well too. I haven't met some of their new people at Digital Wealth Partners yet, but I'm sure I will at the next event. But I had a good conversation with Jake about what they got going on right now and some of the things that they're going to be working on in the future. How their XRP income funds are going. They have the largest XRP funds out there. Now, it's not DeFi, right? This is centralized XRP income funds, the income fund and the growth fund that they have. And then I know that they have plans for more funds as well, too. I'm very excited to continue watching what they build out. They're moving very quickly, which is why I have to have conversations with him frequently. And I'm always asking them questions on, the various things that they're working on. But we had a good conversation just, about where things are heading. I think that he is in a camp of speculating that the inflows will happen faster. I think that we both understand. I mean, I've heard him mention my multiplier on the Paul Barron podcast and reference it, it as well too. So I know he understands it and gets it. He gets the catalysts that are going to drive XRP higher. It's just a bet that we're making on how fast does it happen. Once again, I'm in the camp that it's inevitable. XRP is going above $100. I want to be very clear about that because a lot of people think I'm being too bearish lately. Zach, 20 to 30 bucks, get out of here. You don't understand the utility. It's like, no, my friend, I do understand the utility. It's just a matter of how fast will the dominoes fall, right? How fast are all these catalysts going to hit? How fast can we check off all these boxes, right? And ultimately, at the end of the day, how fast do the inflows come? If we get 5 billion inflows in the first month with a multiplier of 883, we add 4.4 trillion to our market cap. That's 4.4 trillion with a T. If the multiplier is cut in half, we still add 2.2 trillion. Okay? If you take 1/4, right, we still add 1 trillion to XRP's market cap. If you want to say, oh, we don't get 5 billion in inflows, we only get half that. Okay, once again, if this is too bullish, if this is too much, cut it in half, take a third, take a quarter. You still arrive at a $20 to $30 XRP. Hard data, simple math, conservative assumptions, take it to the bank. Okay. Another super chat just came in. Let's catch that one. Pelosi's in Satoshi says, I have the screenshot. I was pumped. That's great. That's great. Yeah, Ripple equity. What a deal. What do you think of the probability of rate cut this month and all of the XRP ETFs in October? 90%. So this actually might shock some of you guys. I actually still think that there's a chance that the Fed might not deliver a rate cut. I still think that they might try to stick it to us one more time. So I'm in like the 50-50 camp probably right now. They've set the stage, which they like to do. Before they cut rates, they like to give everybody kind of the warning, kind of ease everybody in. And if they cut in a panic, well, that's bad. So we don't want to see that. But if they give kind of a telegraphed cut, that's going to be good. And so I put the odds right now on a cut at 50%. And I would not be surprised at all if they do not cut and they stick it to President Trump one more time. They will cut by the end of the year, though. I do believe in that 100%. And I do believe that all of the spot XRP ETFs will go live in October 100%. So the odds on XRP ETFs in October, 100%. The odds of a rate cut here in September, I put at 50%. Maybe you could put me in the 60-40 camp. 60% chance of rate cuts, 40% no cut. Scott Dice says, Zach was going to put half my XRP into iTrust Capital, and they are XRP in, but only cash out. So you'd lose your XRP, no bueno. Yeah, so this is something that I'm going to break down for you guys, comparing the iTrust 401k product is different than their PCA accounts. The premium custody accounts, it is true, you relinquish control of your crypto when you put it in, and you can only cash out. Now, the reason why they do that is it's a security measure. So if you ever get hacked or compromised, the hacker can only send money to your bank account. So it's a security measure. And I think for folks that are going to, if you have a bag of XRP that you're going to sell, then sure, right? You could put it into that account. You give up control, but you know that you're going to sell that XRP in the next 6 to 12 months. So you're fine giving up control because you know you're going to cash out anyways. Now, for your long-term holdings, obviously you wouldn't want to put it into an account like that if there's any possibility that you would want that back out, right? So whatever you put into that PCA account, you have to understand that you can only accept dollars on the other side. But I think they're offering institutional grade custody with 1% trading fees. So I think it's going to be a nice offering, and I'm excited to break that down further. But really, I was excited to add iTrust Capital, especially for their 401k community resource, because we really needed that. I didn't have anybody that I could send. Somebody's got a 401k. Hey, Zach, where can I invest into crypto with my 401k? I had nobody. Now, if you guys set up a call with Mark Kohler's law firm, he can actually help you set up a 401k retirement account, backdoor mega Roth IRA. We talked about that one with him during our call that we had a couple weeks ago. That was a very valuable session with Mark Kohler. But I'm going to be creating a few of my entities, LLCs, trusts, etc., with Mark Kohler's law firm. I think that he provides great service, and that's all we had. We can help you set up a 401k, but as far as being able to invest in crypto, I'm very excited that we've been able to partner up with iTrust Capital to provide that community resource for our community. Georgia Home Investor. But yeah, Scott, I'll be breaking that down further here later this week, okay? Georgia Home Investor, thank you for the 20 spot. NABF, but placed a Coinbase XRP derivative anyway at 280, up, and away. Going to watch your XRPL trading video tomorrow. There you go. It's a good one. Yep. And what I did is I created a new playlist on my YouTube channel titled XRP Ledger Dex. And I'm going to be making some more tutorials on the XRP Ledger Dex as well, like the AMMs and other different things that you'll be able to do, especially as XRP DeFi expands. Keep your eyes on that playlist. Mike G, thank you for the 2 spot. XRP to $100. My birthday, July 14th, 2026. Let's go. That wouldn't be too bad, huh? $100 XRP. We'd be able to change some lives with some $100 XRP, huh? It's funny. When we talk about high prices of XRP, I literally have no thoughts of like luxurious items, vacation, like anything like that. I don't think of Lambo. I don't think of, new whippy whip. I don't think, I'm going to go put a little check on my wrist, get me a little rolly. I'm going to go do, no, I don't think of any of that. I think of the next assets that I'm going to be buying with my XRP. And I also think about the lives that we're going to change by giving back. Right? That's the difference between the XRP community and the rest of the crypto space, generally speaking. I see a lot of kids out here to flip it for a little bag, get a little hypercar, rent a little whippy whip, rent a little girl with them. That's not the XRP family. Far from it. We're, building families with our loved ones, making babies, right? Building wealth, bringing value to our community, giving back, giving to our church like never before. Praise God. It's going to be a great time. Yeah. Going to be a great time. Desert Roamer. When the Ripple Bank gets approved, will it create an XRP scarcity because they will need most of the escrow as collateral in their vault? What's your thought, Zach? Well, this is an important conversation. I think that we just heard Brad Kimes kind of bring that up in some of his content recently. I think I saw where, and this is something that we've talked about too, right? This conversation about how much of the escrow is Ripple going to hold on to? Because at any day now, Ripple could just turn off the faucet. Right? This is the one big variable that's really an unknown. I know that we're getting institutional adoption. I know that we're getting ETFs and big inflows. I know that we're getting digital asset treasury companies that are putting XRP on their balance sheet. The one thing that I don't know is, will Ripple turn up that faucet a little bit, right? Lately, for the last few years, Ripple has been getting $1 billion released from the escrow every month, but what they do is they return 70 to 80% of it back to the escrow. So they've only been slow trickling out 20 to 30% of the escrow each month, and then they only sell it to institutional partners. Now, if Ripple decides to turn that up a little bit, they could start releasing more XRP. That could change things. But they also could take it the other way, where they turn it off and they say, yeah, we're all done. Good luck. God bless. Hopefully you were able to get your XRP bag because we're done releasing it. We're going to need to keep the rest for ourselves and our business and our partners. So, thanks for participating. Thanks for being here. Hopefully you got some. Good luck. God bless. We're done releasing it. That could happen too. The other thing too is the pre-allocation contracts. How much of the escrow is already accounted for, and ultimately doesn't even end up in Ripple's hands. Ripple could have pre-allocation contracts that take us out for the next decade that release, most of the escrow, where Ripple only is left with, 10 to 20%. And I think that I don't know if they've ever talked about that number before, but I think a lot of people have thought that it comes down to, 20%. And I think that the 20% conversation came around from the first drafts of the Clarity Act, which would suggest that an asset is only mature if no one entity controls more than 20% of the supply. So I think that's where the conversation came of. I'm remembering that conversation clearly now. That's where it came about. Because in the Clarity Act, they say that a mature blockchain basically has no one entity controls more than 20% of the supply. So we might come to a day down the road here where Ripple says, hey guys, you're going to see more XRP coming out of the escrow and being distributed to our partners, but it's going to partners that already have a pre-allocation contract with us. And, it's just going to be going straight from the escrow to them, and they're going to be deploying it for their utility and use cases. And so everybody else, me, you, and every other Joe Blow retail trader, we then take a look around and we go, wait. Binance has a billion XRP, a couple billion XRP. Kraken has a billion XRP. Coinbase has a couple billion. Wait. There's less than 10 billion XRP float. Even as XRP price goes up and more people sell their XRP, there's only 10, 20 billion XRP that's going to be available. And that's probably high. It could be a lot less. There's some people suggesting and speculating that there's only less than 5 billion XRP actually available in supply right now that you could actually acquire. Remember, to acquire XRP, you need a seller. And I don't know if you guys have ever met the XRP army or family. We're crazy. Some would say we're insane. Some call us a cult. We probably check off all those boxes. And in fact, I'm kind of glad that we do, because it means that more people are going to hold on to this thing forever. And it's just simple supply-demand dynamics after that drive the price higher over years and decades to come. Yep. Cheers, everybody. If you guys haven't already, please make sure that you like this video. Help us out by sharing it out far and wide. We greatly appreciate that. Do I still think that XRP goes to $7 this month? My targets have come down. I think that we got $4 to $5 this month, and then $7, $7 to $8 in October. But I could be wrong. I'd love to be wrong, and those targets are actually low. But I have moved those targets. I have lowered them. Yep. That's true. Some call us the R word too. That's okay. I'm fine. I lean into that. Call us a cult. Call us. That's okay. Yeah, sure. I agree. You can't call us broke. The XRP family keeps on printing gains. That's for sure. You can call us anything you want, but you can't say we ain't making it. Okay. We got Dennis. Ripple can open the escrow with regular keys. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch how much they end up holding on to. It's a big variable here. But once again, you got to bring it back to what's the incentive? What's Ripple's incentive in this whole game? It's to make XRP go up to a very high price and stabilize it. High enough that they can facilitate all the liquidity that's going to move onto the ledger, and as high as possible for their own benefit. Ripple is not incentive to keep XRP cheap forever. There's an old quote from David that says XRP can't be dirt cheap. And it's just true. I mean, if you want to really move these volumes of liquidity that we talk about, you can't have a cheap price of XRP. There's not enough XRP to go around. You need a higher price. E. York, thank you very much for the 5 spot. Let's check this super chat real quick, then we'll get back to our rapid fire Q&A. I'm going to do about 5 more minutes of rapid fire Q&A before we wrap up tonight. E. York says, hi, Zach. Have you heard anything recently on Elon's payment system on X Money? Do you think that XRP will have a piece? Yeah, thank you. I think that X Payments is going to be blockchain agnostic. I've never thought that they were going to just pick one chain. You know, they're going to pick Dogecoin. They're going to pick XRP, XLM. No, I think they'll be blockchain agnostic. Yeah, I think they're going to be blockchain agnostic with, sorry, what was the question? It was on Elon. Yeah, X Payments. Yeah, I think that they'll be blockchain agnostic. Blockchain being so transparent, why does no one know exactly how much XRP is left on exchanges? Well, that's a problem with the exchanges, because what the exchanges do is they have hot wallets and cold wallets. So although we've tracked a lot of them, these exchanges are playing games. That's the only reason why we don't know. It has nothing to do with the XRP ledger, has nothing to do with Ripple, it has to do with these exchanges, and they use hot wallets, they use cold wallets. We've tracked a lot of them, but they could have some stashes low key here and there. They also play additional games. Yeah. When is your interview with Caleb and Brown again? I'll be doing that next week with Jim Bazzani from Caleb and Brown. And like I say, if you're trading big bags of crypto, that's where I'm cashing out from right now. That's where I'm trading my crypto, and I'm also taking advantage of institutional custody for free. And I think that anybody who's new to the game, who doesn't want to deal with wallets, I wish that we had this solution years ago. Because now I can just tell those folks, okay, you don't want to deal with wallets, you don't have to. You don't have to deal with counterparty risk. You can be in bankruptcy remote. You can be in institutional grade custody with Caleb and Brown for free. For free. Pretty much every other provider in the world, you need to have 6 and 7 figures in crypto. to have institutional grade custody, and they're still going to charge you for the institutional grade custody. They're going to take fees. Whereas Caleb and Brown, the fee is $0 for institutional grade custody. It's free to set up an account. It's free to store crypto there. You only get charged when you make a trade. Yeah, so it's where I've started moving my XRP that I plan on trading and cashing out. I also traded my Zebek on Caleb and Brown too. Is Caleb and Brown going to be able to cash out all of our big bags when we want it? I think that they're going to be in position to handle it the best. You know, part of the dynamic that plays out is the order book thins out as XRP goes to higher and higher prices. So at a certain point, it's not going to be the exchanges or a brokerage platform's fault when we run out of buyers, right? When XRP goes up to 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks, eventually the buyers get exhausted. That's not Caleb and Brown's fault. That's not Uphold's fault. That's not any exchange's fault. The order book runs out. It runs thin. And so, you know, I think that being a brokerage platform that can go service liquidity from multiple different venues, they're in a better spot than most are. The other thing that Caleb and Brown does differently, and I'll have Jim explain this too, he explained it in my first interview with him, and I'll have him explain it again. I also interviewed Jake, who is my personal broker at Caleb and Brown too. He said the same thing. They actually will use their own liquidity to conduct your trade, and then you're going to get your dollars on the other end. So basically, your XRP stays in your institutional segregated bankruptcy remote account while they facilitate the trade, catch the dollars, and then they take your XRP out and give you the dollars that they said they would. No spread, no slippage, no hidden cost. Now they charge their trading fee, but it's transparent. You know what it's going to be. And that's what I like. I don't like the games. I don't like spreads, slippage, withdrawal limits, withdrawal fees. Especially for you guys that want to cash out big bags. You want to cash out, 10,000 plus. You want to cash out 100,000. Some of you guys are looking to cash out $1 million this bull run. And what you're going to run into is some of these platforms are going to nickel and dime you on the spread, slippage, etc. And then they're going to hit you with the withdrawal limit, withdrawal fee. Next thing you know, you thought you were cashing out $1 million. You're only pulling 950,000 to your bank account. You end up paying 5% after spread, slippage, fees, withdrawal limit, withdrawal fees. 5% ends up being the total cost versus 3.5% at Caleb and Brown. Money sent to your bank account, no withdrawal fee, no withdrawal limit, and it's there the next day. Big difference, especially when you get up into the bigger amounts. So on the surface level, 3.5% trading fee seems high till you go get absolutely squeezed and taken to town by these other exchanges that hide the fees, hide the spread, hide the slippage, and then they tell you, you can only withdraw $10,000 per day. You can only withdraw $25,000 per week. Instead of Caleb and Brown, hey, can you send $1 million back to my bank account? Thank you. Goodbye. Done. Big difference. What's a good bag to start with them? Well, that's the thing. The minimum trades are $500, right? So you got to trade at least $500 per trade. That's the minimum, right? So I would say, if you can just put $500 or $1,000 on their platform, but it's free to get started. So you could create an account for free and then eventually move assets in there. And there's no limit for coming on. There's no minimum. So if you only have 50 XRP to start with, you can move your 50 XRP there. It's an institutional grade custody, bankruptcy remote. So if Caleb and Brown goes bankrupt, you're not a creditor. Your assets are yours. They get transferred to you. Okay. Now, got another super chat that came in here. Justin, thank you. 2017 bull run, XRP to $100 to $200, $200 this run. Case is over. ETFs are coming. We didn't have that in 2017. XRP has missed the last bull run because of the SEC case. This is why I refuse to rule out high prices for XRP. This is why I leave it on the table to see some of these bigger numbers come in this year or next year. Because if some of these catalysts play out certain ways, these dominoes fall faster, then yeah, you're at a $50, $100 XRP. I think eventually we're going there. The utility, the addressable markets that we're going after, the supply shock that gets driven by multiple catalysts, ETFs, digital asset treasury companies, stubborn Joe Blows like me that are going to hold on to most of their XRP. Like, we're just not selling it. Not at 10, not at 50, not at 100, not at 1,000. It gets parked in a trust. We leverage against it. We never sell it. The children get it if they behave themselves, you know, and I'll tell you, they're going to have to behave themselves. Okay. We have stipulations in the trust. You do good, you get your XRP. You don't do good, well, you guys know how it is. God bless them. God bless them. Yeah. Yep. I just want to easily be able to send funds from exchanges directly to Caleb and Brown. It is very simple. What you do is you just convert it to XRP and transfer your XRP over. That's what I've done. I haven't sent any money to Caleb and Brown. I just have sent XRP there. And then 1 month, that was back in April, I bought Zebek, and I just used that from affiliate commission that I had earned on their platform. So I've actually never gone through the process of sending them money, but I just send them XRP. And I've sent them, you know, chunks of XRP with ease. And, you know, that's typically how I do it when I go between exchanges, is I convert to XRP or XLM, and then I transfer those because the transaction costs me nothing. It goes through in 3 to 5 seconds. And what you end up waiting on is the platforms or the exchanges for their internal systems to send the transaction through. The XRP ledger, or XLM, settles up 3 to 5 seconds every time, no cost. You end up waiting for the platform, the exchange might take a minute for the platform to register. But yeah, if you're looking to fund your account on Caleb and Brown from another exchange, the easiest way to do so is probably XRP. You send a test transaction of 5 XRP first, make sure it goes through, and then you can send the big bag, right? But yeah, I've heard some people said, you know, they only accept wire transfers. I know that can be a bit much, but this is why I say you need to make sure that your bank connections, your debit, credit cards are all linked up with your accounts before we get further along in this bull run, because you want as many on-ramps as possible. You want as many off-ramps as possible. It's absolutely critical. And so, you know, you can get on your phone with your broker if you need help funding your account with Caleb and Brown. They'll be happy to do so. It's free of charge. But I would recommend sending XRP there. It's way easier. Way easier. Now, obviously, you want that bank connection, though, so that you have that availability. And once you do it, that connection's made. Once again, I want my banks to know, whether it's my small credit union, whether it's, you know, the bigger bank that I work with. I have a couple different banks. I have multiple different exchanges. I have a couple different brokerage firms that I work with, Uphold, Caleb and Brown. I might end up doing a Roth through iTrust, right? You know, all these providers, I want them all to know each other as much as they need to. You know, I connect my credit unions with them. We connect our bigger accounts with them. I have multiple XRP wallets. I guess, you know, once you've been in the game for a while, like I have XRP wallets for trading memes, wallets for doing the AMM, wallets for just holding XRP, wallets for trading XRP. I have a XRP wallet linked up in the description down below for sending XRP tips. If you guys want to support the channel that way, you can. The XRP wallet that's linked up in the description of the video. You can drop me an XRP tip right there. So I've made so many different XRP wallets. I have, multiple different platforms, and I routinely go through and I make sure that they're all linked up. Bank accounts linked up, debit cards linked up, credit cards linked up. That's what we do. Jimmy Popcorn, I appreciate that comment. He says, I am new to XRP the last 3 months, but Zach's channel is the most informative and reality-based. Thanks, Zach. Yeah, and I'm not going to get every call right. I'm not here to get every call right? But we got to be willing to give our targets, our timelines, our analysis. I'm not going to be scared to do so, and the point is we get to a spot here where even we're off by our calls on targets just a little bit, but we still make money on the margin. That's the opportunity. I don't need to time the exact top of XRP. I just stack the hell out of it under 50 cents, ride it up to, double digits. Is the top 20, 30, or 50 bucks? Well, we have targets along the way. We know what we're going to do with that XRP. We're going to, take a little bit of profit along the way, cash it out. I'm going into other asset classes like real estate and private equity. We have a plan. When my targets get hit, we move. When it's all said and done, I have the advantage of stacking such a big bag of XRP over the course of 6 years. Actually, what would that be, 7 years? 7 years that I've been stacking XRP, that we sell some XRP along the way. We still have a good enough bag to sleep well at night. Nicole, yes, my employer just requested the paperwork for me to move my pension to an approved IRA. Do they have traditional IRAs? Yes. Stay tuned. We're dialing in a couple last things. The iTrust guys are working on my landing page. And so I'm going to be dropping some content on 401ks, iTrust, all of their offerings later this week. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for that. Okay. E. York says, Zach, what's the odds on XRP going to $100 in 5 years and the odds on the New York Giants winning the Super Bowl in the next 5 years? Okay. That's a great question, E. York. I really do appreciate that. I don't have a clue about the Giants winning the Super Bowl. I'll tell you guys what I know. I'll share my analysis, and I got a lot of analysis on crypto markets, etc., current events, politics. I could go on and on. When it comes to sports, I don't even know the quarterback of my favorite team anymore. See, I grew up a Packers fan. Even though I live in the Pacific Northwest, I was raised a Packers fan. I have family in Wisconsin. Or as they say, Wisconsin. I got family in Wisconsin. And God bless them. Great, beautiful land out there. We got a beautiful farm out there. Tremendous. I want to take my family out there to go show. My grandfather's sister and her husband live out there. They've had a dairy farm. Then they've done a few different things, but they're elderly now, and so they're winding down their farm operations. They rent out a lot of their farmland now. This is actually where I shot my first deer. I got my first doe in Wisconsin. So, anyways, I'm a Packers fan. Is it Jordan Love? Is it Jordan Love? After Aaron Rodgers wrapped things up, I lost track. I have no idea. I love the Mariners, Seattle Mariners baseball. I have no idea who's on the team. We went to a Mariners game, I think last year. We only made it till about the 6th inning because we brought my daughter, my 2-year-old daughter. So, we didn't really last that long. But we made it 6 innings. I got to have, some nice garlic fries and a cold bevy. And then we took off, which allowed us to beat traffic. So that worked out fine. But I'm watching the Mariners game. I didn't know anybody playing. I'm totally out of the loop on sports, E. York. I apologize. The odds of the Giants, well, I've never been a Giants fan. And, I like to talk smack. So I'll just say the odds of the Giants winning the Super Bowl in the next 5 years is 0. Sorry. The odds of XRP to $100 in 5 years is 100% in my opinion. So I don't know football. So please understand that. Don't come here for football or sports analysis. Now, growing up, I thought that I was going to be a commentator for sports. I watched Sports Center every day before school. Literally, I mean, and I would sit there and I would do presentations for my family. As a kid, I would get a coffee cup, I would fill it up with water, and I'd give them a whole breakdown. I'd write it out on a note sheet. I mean, literally, what I do right now for a living when it comes to financial markets, that's what I thought I was going to do for sports back in the day. I'd fill up my coffee cup with water. I'd pretend, give a whole presentation for my family. I used to be into it. I used to live it. I'm out of the loop completely. But when it comes to XRP going to $100 in the next 5 years, I say 100%. 100%. Yeah. Zach, do you have an XRP market cap chart? Yes. When XRP muscle shirts? Well, so the shirts are all cotton. I don't like the polyester. We don't really believe, the polyester for workout gear. Okay, yeah, but the polyester, not good. Not good for you. Not good. We like to go with the cotton, okay? So everything's cotton, so it does shrink, right? So I would note that. This is a cotton shirt that I have on right here. It's a perfect fit as an XL, but I've had to go to a double XL. The dad bod has filled out nicely. And so now I went from XL skinny boy to double XL big daddy, trying to keep the dad bod in check. I tell you what, it took me years. I struggled to break 200 pounds back in the day. And now I can hold 210 with ease. And I think recently I've gotten back up to 220. I'm thinking to myself, oh, goodness gracious, my metabolism ain't as fast as it used to be. So now I got to get back in there. And I've been getting my workouts in, but not as frequently as I should be. But anyways, the cotton will shrink up slightly. So yeah. Yeah, we go with the cotton. Yep. Thanks for another awesome night, Zach. I'm learning a lot, man. You bet. You bet. Oh yeah, somebody asked for the XRP market cap chart. I'll show you guys. It's actually nice to look at market cap charts because it accounts for the token inflation as well, right? Real quick check on XRP price. We're at 284. We slide on. If you just type in XRP, it'll do, excuse me. What you'll get is the XRP market cap chart. And what you got here is some measurements that I took. I don't know what this is for. Measuring upside potential. But yeah, here's the XRP market cap chart. So it looks like the all-time high market cap. Oh, whoops. That's not what we wanted to do. We wanted the vertical. No, that's the horizontal line. Yeah, about 216 billion is the all-time high for XRP's market cap. Okay. So yeah, 216 billion. But as I showed you guys earlier, this was the multiplier 883 from November. Only 118 million inflows. Market cap grew by 105 billion. And I really, you're going to hear me reference that month a lot because that month really changed the reality for XRP, where it went from a $30 billion asset, less than 30 billion, to over a 130 billion. That was the month that it added 100 billion to its market cap, and it has not come back since. And then it proceeded to add another 80 billion plus to its market cap, eventually reaching up here at 216 billion. But the month where this all changed was November. All of these measurements are from me doing my multiplier equation. That's why this chart's so jacked up. is because all of these are measurements of me doing market cap. But right here, this is the measurement that I did for this video right here. 105 billion of market cap growth. And that was over a 4-week period. This is when we crossed over 100 billion market cap, and then we never came back until we went back down here to 270, or no, that would have been back below $2 briefly, right back in April, when we went back down to, what was that, $1.60? Whatever that low level was. Go back to the XRP price chart. Oh, no wonder this chart's so jacked up. I'm on the 4-hour chart. Let me find our chart here. Yeah, that was $1.60. So when we went to $1.60 on the market cap chart, let me slide on back. That was when we were down here. We went briefly back below 100 billion. But that only lasted about 2 days, and then we were back above 100 billion in market cap. My apologies that this is so jacked up. These are all market cap calculations. Multiplier. Look at that, 542x multiplier. Yep. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for stopping by tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure of mine. Hope that you guys got a lot of value. I went way longer than I thought I was on the Q&A, but I like to do so because I know it provides so much value to you guys. So if you appreciate what we're doing here, I just ask that you share our content out far and wide. We've dropped multiple updates today, a couple TikToks today. Those short form content TikToks are really good for bringing awareness and spreading. They're easy for new people to consume. They only have to watch a 60-second video versus sending them to one of my live shows, which is 2 hours. And they say, oh, I can't spend 2 hours learning about how to take advantage of the greatest transfer of wealth in world history. And you tell them, well, your future depends on it. So you probably should, and we try to, we only go so long because we have so much value to share, right? There's so much to cover, not just in XRP, but other markets as well too. So all that we ask is that you like our content, share it out far and wide. You can also support us by using our community resources that we have linked up down below in the description of this video. Everything else is at zachrector.com. If you go to my website, you can also find our shop to get the XRP family merch. And stay tuned. We're going to be adding the white XRP logo hats this week. So stay tuned for that. We appreciate your support. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Hope you guys have a fantastic evening. And God bless you all. Thank you so much.